All right, welcome back to another episode of Frozen Oil. Welcome, Sam.
Thank you.
Thanks
It's great to be here.
Yesterday, the Oilers fell to the Canucks in Game 1 of Round 2, and I already did a recap video right after the game. It was pretty quick. I was super emotional. I was so upset that the Oilers lost that game, and today we're just going to discuss that game a little bit more and talk about a little bit about Game 2. So
Sounds great.
let's get going here. So let's get into the stats from Game 1. Shots on goal, Vancouver Canucks 24, Edmonton Oilers 18.
Yeah, it was I think to start the game, Edmonton was up 10-3 in shots in the first period. Canucks probably had a couple more late at the end. And then when Hyman scored, I believe the shots were 14-13 for Edmonton. So that was about 7 minutes left in the second period, give or take.
Yep.
Between shots, Edmonton went nearly 23 minutes before their next one. They finished the game at 18. A couple of them were kind of in the last 30 seconds when they were just trying to throw stuff on net. So, if you take those away, they had 2 shots in almost half a hockey. Pretty disappointing. And it's not as if they were generating anything.
Yeah, it was trying to find the proper word for the second half of that game. Disheartening to say the least. We know the boys can perform better than that for sure. Face-off percentages, 63.5 to Vancouver, 36.5 Edmonton. Usually, that's more evened out in a hockey game, but the advantage again goes to the Canucks. So a lot of the comments after yesterday's video, a lot of Canucks fans out there made some comments, so welcome. But a lot of the comments were, why did you think the Oilers dominated the game? And I was specific that I felt the Oilers dominated the first period for sure, and then second period there was a couple of big penalty kills for the Oilers, and it just got away from them after that. So based on the first period and having a 4-1 lead in the second period, I felt the Oilers should have had that game. They let it slip away. Kudos to the Canucks for coming back and winning for sure. But a couple weak plays on defense for the Oilers, and a couple of soft goals on Skinner that just can't happen. Been preaching that for the last 10 years with the Oilers to get a solid goaltender. I still believe it's Skinner, but we got to be better. So
yeah, I do think the Oilers started the game really good, so we'll clarify that.
Yeah.
The 4-1 lead, I'm not sure it was a true 4-1 lead in the sense that you could argue the Canucks were generating one of the scoring chances. Skinner made a big save on Connor Garland early, right after the Hyman goal in the first period. I would say 3 of the Oilers' goals were pretty weak. The power play one was nice. The Ekholm one, no traffic. Kind of Shelovs was sliding the wrong way. You'd like your goalie to have that one. The third goal, that Cody Ceci shot, deflected off a Vancouver defenseman and in.
Yep.
And this was after the Canucks had puck possession for maybe a solid minute and a half in the offensive zone. A puck just skidded by Skinner. The Oilers came back the other way. Nice shot, but again, no screen, no real threat for the goalie. And the fourth goal, it went in. Hyman shot it on the rush. I didn't even react because I couldn't believe it went in.
yeah, that was
Off Tyler Meyer's stick in the net. So yeah, the Oilers were scoring goals. They were not generating much for offensive zone time, and they were not generating much for high danger chances. And this goes for every single player on the roster. That might have unfortunately been the worst playoff game I've seen McDavid play.
Yeah, he definitely didn't do his thing. You want McDavid to produce. You want him to, control the pace of the game. That's what he does. And yeah, unfortunately, it didn't happen. That Zach Hyman goal, his second goal, definitely was almost like a change-up in baseball.
Yeah,
fooled the goalie there. That happens. It's going to happen, to the Oilers. It's happened to the Oilers. It's going to happen to any team. And we were fortunate to get a 4-1 lead. is kind of what I was trying to say in my last video. Is we had a 4-1 lead, and at that point you're hoping that, you know, you're making adjustments, your players are, you know, going for that win and closing that game out. That didn't happen. That's what needs to happen in a playoff game. So let's get into some more of these detailed metrics.
Yeah. So I'm just going to preface this by saying I don't truly believe that advanced metrics are the only way to measure a hockey game. I do think they're really important. They provide kind of a counter argument to sometimes what your eyes always see. It's the old adage that blocking shots is great, but you have to block them all the time. That's probably a problem, that you're in your zone way too much. So some of these stats that get measured, the most basic one is called Corsi. It's just the amount of shot attempts you generate, whether they hit the net or not. It's a good indicator of how much time you're spending in the offensive zone. Now, it doesn't necessarily measure danger chances, because you have teams like LA, for example, they'll put up high amounts of shot totals, but they're not from danger areas. I mean, let's look at, it was with game 4 where they had like 33 shots. Edmonton still out-generated them in terms of high danger. So Edmonton gets to those spots. So Edmonton's never going to be a team that's 40 shots a game, because they pick and choose their spots. They have the guys that can get to the dangerous areas. So at 5-on-5, Vancouver out-generated Edmonton 43-36, which is a fairly low event hockey game. Most hockey games tend to be in like the 70s for shot attempts for teams. Fenwick is the amount of unblocked shots. Vancouver out-generated them 34-25. And then we'll look at scoring chances. So this is where a lot of the Canucks fans in the comments probably had a reason. High danger scoring chances were 10-5 for Vancouver. So those are measured generally by on the rush chances, slot shots. And again, this is all an indicator at 5-on-5. The total goal differential at even strength yesterday was 5-3 Vancouver, because they did score that one 4-on-4 goal. So in terms of actually generating opportunities, Vancouver was definitely the better team. And I don't think you can find much argument for it. The concern that I had for Edmonton, well, one, their inability to generate. But two, I know he gets harped on all the time. I don't have a gripe with him. I don't care how much money he makes. It doesn't come out of my paycheck. Darnell Nurse and Cody Ceci struggled mightily. And people can say they play tougher matchups. That's actually not true. Kind of since Knobloch took over, he's really been prioritizing Ekholm and Bouchard with primary defensive zone draws, and Kulak and Desharnais tend to take the next best line. Yesterday, Ekholm and Bouchard were paired up with the Vancouver Canucks first line with JT Miller. Desharnais and Kulak took the Pettersson line. Now, obviously, this isn't going to be a perfect line match every single time. It's just the percentage of times that they played against the higher opposition.
And as the away team, you're getting last change.
You get last change, exactly. So Nurse and Ceci took the Lindholm line. Now you have Lindholm, Dakota Joshua, and Connor Garland. They're a good line. You can't get out scoring chance 12-1 with them on the ice versus you. So that pairing, unfortunately, was on for 4 goals against. I know they scored 1, but when you are getting completely hemmed in the zone by the other team's third line, you're going to struggle. Which is kind of what happened, because that third line,
100%,
they generated all the momentum for Vancouver. They scored the first goal. The second goal they scored on a wraparound, and then you create life for that team, right? And
100%.
Connor Garland scored the game-winning goal, so
100%, and that's what's going to win you playoff games. It's that secondary scoring that needs to happen. So the big thing for, you know, when you're looking at things at a macro level, which is how I tend to look at things, and then you look at things through all these, you know, very impressive statistics, you're really zoning in on the micro level. It's good to have, you know, both perspectives. Example, you know, somebody might have, we've had this argument many times. I have to bring him up. Warren Fogle.
yeah.
So you know, for me, I feel he is kind of the type of player that's, you know, just like gets the puck and he goes like a bull towards the net, which is great. But as far as peripheral vision, you know, I just don't see that he has that. And even though his metrics might be high for 5-on-5, like you tell me all the time, me personally, I just feel that if you're going to have a player playing on your second line, you have to have that additional vision, and I just don't see that. And then it results in, you know, errant passes that go into areas where there's not even a player, and it just disrupts your flow of the game. I mean, you play hockey. I play hockey. You know, I'm at a sub beer league level, but I mean, when you're on a line and you're in the right spots and you're getting those passes to generate space and stuff like that, when you get a guy that just makes a pass into no man's land, it just disrupts everything, and then you got to skate back, and then you got to come back, and you might not have that same opportunity again. So it's an argument that can be made for any team in the NHL, any team at any level, right? It depends how you look at it. So it's fun to do this stuff and to look at,
And that's one thing that helps with the analytics is you can find diamonds in the rough, but also the issue with them is you overvaluate players.
Yeah.
So an example of a player who analytically was phenomenal was Carter Verhaeghe. He was in the Tampa City. He was actually in Toronto. Of course, the Toronto Maple Leafs lost him once upon a time. And then he was in Tampa. He was playing a fourth line role, phenomenal advanced metrics. Florida paid him, and look where he's at now. But then on the flip side of it, and I've been guilty of it, I was a huge Jesse Puljujarvi guy. And he had phenomenal numbers. But you need to be able to balance both. The reason I like Fogel is he doesn't get much power play opportunity. He's shown in the past when he's had to play a top six role, he can at least produce or finish at a decent level alongside Leon Draisaitl. He had about 20 goals this year without playing much power play time. I don't know much more you can want from him.
You can't ask for more as far as goal production, but I just believe if it's somebody else that has a little more vision than him, playing with Leon Draisaitl, you can produce more than that, right? And like I said, season to season, it hasn't always been a 20-goal season for him. We're not gonna, spend this entire time talking about Warren Foegele, but just to bring to you guys, just the difference between, looking at things at a micro level, looking at things at a macro level. I'm more of a macro level guy. A lot of you love the micro level stuff, and another example of that, of something you can't measure is heart, right? You can't measure heart with these statistics, and I mean Mitch Marner would be a great example of that. The stats are off the charts in the regular season, but it comes to the playoffs, and it's these aren't my words, but I mean the media tears them up every year in the playoffs because everybody feels, especially if you're a Leafs fan, that he needs to be more engaged and more into the game, and that can't be measured really with
there's no number that can quantify.
Exactly. Cool. Now we're going to talk about game 2. Game 1's been flushed out of our system, so let's talk about some of the things the Oilers need to do in order to come out with a dub, as they say.
So the good thing, okay, maybe it's not a great thing. The Oilers are actually 2-9 in game 1s with Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl. They were 1-9 or 1-8, I should say, before LA this year. It's kind of surprising because most of those series they've started on home ice. The good thing is, they are 7-3 in games following. So in games 2, and following a loss, they are 6-2. One of those losses came in overtime to one of the Jets, 1-0 in the COVID year. So they've shown a strong ability to bounce back. Many of these games in games 2, they've played phenomenal and have blown the teams out. So I'm confident that they will respond. Let's be real, they did not play well yesterday. And I truly, there's no disrespect to Vancouver. Vancouver was the better team, but I don't think they did anything that made me scared of what's to come in this series. Not saying that Vancouver can't, they could probably play better, but I'm confident if Edmonton plays the way they can, they should be able to handle the Canucks. The one concern is Draisaitl. We know he's going to play because he's German engineering. And he's shown in the ability in the playoffs before. Was it 2 years ago where he played through a high ankle sprain? And
2 years ago, yeah.
Put up, 17 points in 5 games against the Flames?
Stud. Warrior.
So we know he's going to play. I would not be surprised if he plays with Connor McDavid. If Leon's limited in any way, as a centerman, you're obviously skating significantly more.
For sure.
It might be good to have him on the wing. Adam Henrique at practice today, for our good friend Mark Spector, took line rushes, but then was on the bench for a lot of practice. So it doesn't really look likely that Henrique's going to play. So what I would possibly do for lines, they're going to load up McDavid, Leon, and Hyman and McDavid are just absolute fire together. You can't break them
For
up.
sure.
The second line, you're probably looking at some combo of Nuge, Kane, and Foegele. The way Pettersson's playing, I'm not worried about that line matching up. The third line, you're going to need a little bit more. You're going to have to lead push. Corey Perry, he does a lot of great things. They're going to need more offensive production from him, or at least for him to just get really greasy.
Yeah.
So you're going to have Holloway, Perry, and McLeod. And in your fourth line, I like Derek Ryan. I think he does a lot of good things. Funny enough, he has a lot of great advanced numbers. I think Sam Carrick would be a good player in this series. The Canucks,
Sure, he played awesome against LA. The games that he did play, and some of those little things, like he had a huge face-off win.
Yep.
And I think it was game 2 in the Oilers zone. It was, those little things. Again, in the playoffs, you got to win those battles. You got to win those big face-offs. And for what we saw for Carrick, I thought he played.
yeah,
played good
he adds
for
a
what-
different element. And I think with how small a lot of the Vancouver wingers are, you could use that physicality. Just from a little bit different, right? I didn't love Janmark playing up in the top 6 last game. I like him as a player. I think he's a fine fourth liner. I don't think he has the offensive ability to keep up with McDavid.
Really? For sure on the McDavid thing, but you didn't think he had a good game?
I think he had a good game based on what his skill set is.
Just the penalty, not the penalty killing aspect is obviously his best quality for sure. But I thought defensively he played awesome.
Which is great.
Yeah.
But
You don't want that on your first
you-
line.
You need
No.
offensive production.
Yeah, he's a third.
And I think
You want him on the third.
trying. I
fourth.
know we just talked about him, but
Yeah.
Vogel, or even the way he's been playing Dylan Holloway,
Yeah,
we're
sure.
lighting him up there.
Dylan's a stud for sure.
I think you want to put each player in a position to succeed, and I think Janmark does best when he can focus on a defensive specialty. Because then, as a fourth line guy, you can focus more on matching up against tougher competition, right?
For sure.
That would be my personal play, and I would look to split up Nurse and CC. I know
Yeah, there's got to be an adjustment on that. I mentioned that in the
we were
recap
talking
video.
about their struggles yesterday, but this has actually been a 2-year thing. So over the last 2 years, since 22-23, the last playoffs, they have a -9 goal differential at 5-on-5 when they're on the ice together. The Oilers, without them on the ice, are +6. On the ice, they've been on for 18 goals against. The Oilers, without them on the ice, for 24. So let's say they played 20 minutes a game each. Let's just say, for sake of easiness, 1/3 of the game.
You're at a disadvantage for 1/3.
You're unfortunately at a disadvantage for 1/3 of the game.
So
And it's
I don't know.
significant.
I agree with you, but I don't think Nurse played as bad as CC yesterday. CC was the positioning that he was in on some of those goals was
The issue is
Was
both of them
hard, yeah.
struggle with the same aspect.
yeah.
Both of them struggle to defend the blue line on zone entries, and both of them struggle with puck retrieval. And Vancouver has smaller forwards that like to chip and get behind the defense.
For sure.
And they struggled with a guy like Dakota Joshua, who's obviously extremely physical. It would be nice to split them because Vinny, as awkward as he looks at times, excels in both of those areas. He has such a long stick, and his ability to calmly go back and get the puck is great. Kulak, you can argue the last 3 years has been the best, or at least most consistent Oilers defenseman
In playoffs.
for what his role is in the
Yeah,
playoffs,
for
right?
sure in the playoffs. Yeah,
And
for
he
sure.
excels at puck retrieval and breaking the puck out with a stroke. Like, he's a phenomenal first pass guy, right?
Mhm.
Nurse is a great puck transporter, but in the playoffs, you got to get the puck to your top guys in speed. That's
100%.
where you watch teams like Colorado. It's quick breakout passes from guys like Makar, Taves, and then they're generating speed through the neutral zone, right? And that's where Edmonton really struggled yesterday. Edmonton is a quick team. You can argue they're maybe the second or third fastest team in the league outside Colorado and Carolina. But if you're not getting the puck to your forwards in stride, you're just stagnant.
Yeah.
The Oilers are never going to be a team where they dump it in and
Just kills the
cycle.
tempo.
That's
Kills
just
it.
not who they
Yeah.
are. So there's no point of trying to force it.
100%. Well, that's going to bring us towards the end of the video here. One last thing. We're going to make a goal score prediction for the Oilers and a final score prediction. So what do you got, Sammy?
Because we talked about him so much, and I know how much Rich loves this guy, we're going to have to go with Warren Fogle and a 4-2 Oilers victory.
I knew you were going to do that to me, and I hope you're right. But I'm going to say Connor McDavid, obviously, and I'm going to say 4-3 Oilers. It's going to be a close game. Thanks for tuning in. Really appreciate it. Please consider subscribing, and most importantly,
Go Oilers, go!